It's the Hero Show. Welcome to the Hero Show, everybody, where each week we examine the lives of great men and women seeking to be the heroes and heroines of our own lives. So you are here with your hosts. I am Andrew Bernstein. You are Robert Begley. How you doing today, Robert?
I'm unbelievable, Andy. Ready to celebrate a woman who saved twice as many lives as Oscar Schindler, but we don't know much about her. Today we'll fix that.
Yeah, we're talking about the Polish humanitarian and real heroine, Irena Sendler. So she
Yeah.
stood up to the Nazis, was
Oof.
tortured by them, and yeah, she's a real heroine. And yeah, not many people know about Irena Sendler, but we're gonna give her the heroine's show that she deserves.
So, some topics to cover today. This is Warsaw, Poland, after the German occupation, and a lot of people witnessed the injustice towards the Jews, but she took a stand. Okay, so what kind of moral courage is that? Secondly, you mentioned her being beaten, physically tortured. They wanted information out of her. They broke both of her legs. And that's a different aspect of courage where you don't give the information away. In fact, you put these names in a bottle and hide 2,000 names in a bottle. And then a little more, I guess, a little more controversial, social workers. This is our first social worker who we're celebrating heroism, but also socialist. I heard the ideology that she embraced was socialism, even though the National Socialists almost killed her. How does this relate to, can these people be heroes? And what's the importance, in my mind, what's the importance of philosophic integration between conscious ideas, ideology, and then the actions that you take? So those are three things that I'd like to unpack during today's episode.
We've never been reticent about criticizing heroes for their flaws, including moral flaws. But we'll get to that. The more important points are the life affirming ones, the heroic actions to that promote human life. And you're right. Nobody. I've seen different accounts regarding Irena Sendler's heroic efforts. As some people say, we don't know how many Jewish kids she saved. Some estimate 2,500, which is the figure I've seen a number of times. So if
That's what we're going with today.
yeah, if that's the case, then you're right. That's more than twice as many as was saved by Oscar Schindler, who was a great hero and was properly immortalized by Steven Spielberg in that grim but heroic film Schindler's List.
Yeah, so that's, I think, Andy, in both questions about witnessing injustice, and then while your neighbors and school friends, because even from the playground in school, she defended Jews. She took a moral stand. And then similarly, she knew morally she was right when they were torturing her and was ready to get killed in that instance. But let's just unpack a little bit of the story here. So she's like 7 years old. She gets into a fight defending these Jewish kids. And already she's like a marked person standing up for who she is. And then a year later, her father dies of typhus. And that's a big impact on her. And then if we go down the timeline, she's in her 20s when the Nazis come in and pretty much occupy Warsaw. So they section off a part of the ghetto because there was typhus outbreaks. That's that what killed her father. This actually worked to her advantage because the Gestapo didn't check very closely who was coming in and who was going out. Early on, a Jewish mother, brings the kid into the medical area where she is working as a nurse and wants to give the kid to Sendler. And she's like, I don't know what to do with it. And she goes home that night and realizes she's helping one little Jewish kid. She's kind of sheltering them in the home that she's in. But she realizes I could do so much more. And that was a question for her whole life. Have I done enough? She recruits these partners within the facility, and They're making documents. They're putting these children, Andy, in coffin crates, in musical instrument crates, as small as can be, from infant age up to 6, 7, 8 years old, teaching them how to bless themselves like a Catholic would, so that so that the authorities don't see how Jewish they are. And there's a conflict also, Andy, because a lot of the Jewish parents do not want their children raised as Catholic. They'd almost rather them die than being free and raised as Catholics.
I'm sorry for laughing. It's not funny, but having had a Jewish mother, and her family, I understand, because whenever I was really angry at her, I would tell her I'm going to convert to Christianity. Oh, that's like the nuclear option for a Jewish mother.
And here's where her heroism comes in, because Sendler sees these parents, and she said this was the most difficult thing in the world to do, to take a child from the mother and give it to another child, to another parent, to raise that child, simply because of the Nazi ideology that the Jews were to be exterminated. And this was very risky. Potato sacks, they were even taking them out of, because they would pretend they were dead bodies who died of typhus, and the German soldiers are like, yeah, go ahead, get it out of my face, So this
Right.
worked to her advantage, and over, I think it was like a 6 month period, not even really that long. It got to this point where there were like over roughly 2,000 names of people that she and what and put those names in a jar. And Andy, one of the places she hid them, right in the dirt below a German barracks, the Gestapo barracks. Like, how's that for, like, in your face? So the story is incredible. As you said, she gets tortured. The Nazis find out about her. They bring her in to get her to talk. Tell us, and break both of her legs. She's on her way to being killed. Executed. And I think it was a Polish government. This is not. I don't have. There are conflicting reports, but they gave the equivalent of $100,000 to the Gestapo, let her walk. And then the remainder of the war, we're still in the fort. This 1943, I think. There's still 2 more solid years of the war. She has to continue working, but in hiding as well. So here's the towering heroism, Andy, that makes her story worthy. So the war continues on. 2 more years she's working in hiding, and then January 1945, the Soviets come in and liberate Warsaw, and then effectively throw the Iron Curtain on top of it over the next several years. So Andy, she does. We mentioned she does try to reunite successfully as many parents who are still alive, but them there's not much known about her. I do know that she was blacklisted by the communists. I think in 1946, 47, and only. After Israel, the state comes in 1948, is like the first child grows up. The first child that she saved grows up and and I think lives in Israel and starts to spread the word about her. And again, her life is behind the Iron Curtain, whether she's a communist, socialist, whatever. We'll get to that in a minute, but just unpacking the timeline here. Her story's not told for a long time, until there is one Jewish website that posts a bit about her story, and then as a school project, this teacher in the Midwest U.S. Tells his class, go out and find an unknown hero. And these girls, freshman high school girls, go out. They find Sendler's story. They end up writing. They're enamored with it. They write to her. They get a letter from her that's written in Polish, which they don't know how to read, and they get all excited. There's a Jewish businessman who wants to fund them going to to Poland to meet with her. Now her story is actually told to a wider audience. And now you could find footage of her meeting. One of the real moving parts of the story, Andy, are the adults and the grandkids, the children and grandchildren of the people whose lives she saved, they go in to meet her and give her a hug and a kiss, and she's crying and they're crying. It's really amazing.
I'd be crying too.
Andy, now let's just switch to this idea of the ideology. Okay, so even before the war, she embraced socialism as an ideology. She didn't really distinguish the National Socialists from the idealistic socialists. And then, as you had said earlier, even communism that she embraced. And these, we know historically, these ideologies have killed millions and millions and millions of people. So, what about the difference here? I mentioned earlier philosophic integration and the importance of that. What are your thoughts on heroes who are committed to the ideology of what and eventually becomes totalitarian states?
This is hard to unpack. People are often mixed, but we could say this: National Socialism, the Nazis, they're fighting race war. Communists, they're fighting class war. So we know Irena Sendler was not a racist. She was very opposed to bigotry. She was opposed to racism and all of its hideous iterations. And what she did, in support of innocent human life against the race war. So you can think of the Nazis. I think of the Nazis as race war socialists and the communists as class war socialists. So she's towering heroine, in support of innocent human life against racism. Now, I don't know enough details about her life. I know she was a government employee in communist Poland for years. During the Cold War, did she support communism, or did she take these jobs because you have to survive? I mean, if she supported communism, well, the communists, have murdered even more innocent human beings than the Nazis. The murder count, as best we can make out, the murder count for the National Socialists is 20 to 22 million. 5 to 6 million Jews in the Holocaust, and then 15 to 16 million, largely Slavic peoples, ironically, Poles, Ukrainians, Russians, that the Nazis regarded as racial inferiors. For the communists, a conservative estimate is 100 million. Now, they were around longer, but still, they're monsters. And so if she was supporting the communists, then I got to criticize her, because the communism in Poland or any place where communism is instituted, how many innocent people did they kill? In her own country, many. I don't know. I don't know Irene Sendler's details. She was behind the Iron Curtain. I don't know if she was actively supporting communism or not. But some people, I don't know, Robert. There's just a massive amount of evasion. Massive amount of evasion if you oppose race war socialism but embrace class war socialism.
You know what? That's a black mark.
Yeah,
I'll just say that. But it does not take away what she had done. And this is what we mean when you see the human life successfully doing this, worthy of. And I know I'm going to set you off here, Andy. The act was worthy of a Nobel Prize. So she's like 96, 97 years old in 2007. And go ahead, Andy. Take it. Tell them who won instead. Tell them who won instead.
they gave them to Al Gore, because of his movie, an inconvenient truth. It's an absolute crime. But yeah, they've given Nobel Peace Prizes to people like Arafat, who were bloody-handed terrorists. But what Irena Sendler did against the Nazis in service of innocent human life stands for all time.
Yes, exactly. And I think for me, Andy, that makes her worthy of this episode. So thank you for turning me on to her. And the research that I did is like, wow, saved twice as many people as Schindler. And yeah, that means something, and that's why we celebrate her.
It absolutely does. And I think we could celebrate, the life and the courage of a towering heroine. And thank you, Irena Sendler, for being an inspiration to us all as we strive to be the heroes and heroines of our own lives. And so, Robert, everybody out there in Hero Land, we will be back next week once again with more stories of great heroes and heroines, seeking inspiration from them to be the best version of ourselves. So we'll see everybody. We'll see you next week again on The Hero Show.